Okay, now we have our wall and our background. Now we need to export it out or find a way to get these normals or height maps or whatever it is into Substance Painter so we can do some magic stuff to it. So the first thing we're going to do is just export out the plane in the background. And the way you do that, export, because this sends it out as an OBJ. I put it in as the default in most game engines, the FBX export import. So I'm going to open that up and I'm going to make sure the options have nothing selected, and I'm going to leave it at its default where it says selected. Whatever layer I am on, whatever is highlighted, is the layer it's going to export. So I'm going to export it, and I'm going to say tile background and throw it right there. And it's done that fast for this one. Now I'm going to come down to this one. What I really like is to be able to separate my grout from my bricks. That way I can have control over how they look. I can also put stuff over the top of all of them, but I'd like them to feel like different materials. So how would I do that? You know, I could export them separately, set them out as two separate layers, but then I'm really wasting a whole plane of texture just for the background, and then I'd have to have a second plane with opacity. It would just be a pain. Well, we use a thing called polygroups, and if you hold Shift and then F inside of here, you will see you get all these colored full blocks. And if I go up to the one above it, there's a different color set inside of there. And you can see that's just showing me the wireframe of the object and the color, which is the polygroup it's set by. So if I go back to this one, what I really want is this to be one polygroup, all of these bricks to be one polygroup, and then my tiling background to be one polygroup. So I'm going to grab the bottom one. Since the first one already is one polygroup, I'm going to go Control and then W when I have the merged bricks selected. And you'll see what it does is it changed that to one polygroup by itself. So this is what I want. I want this as a polygroup and this is a polygroup. You can see they're different colors. And we'll talk more about polygroups and stuff as you get further into ZBrush. It's actually a huge advantage, and it makes a lot of sense once you get used to it. So then I'm going to come over to the export, and in the options this time, I want to change it to polygroups as mats. So it's materials. It's going to export these out as ID'd as different material sets for each of these, the bricks and the background. The other thing I want to do is say export visible, because I want to export both the background and the bricks at the same time. So I do have that option where I'll see the background and the bricks as different materials. And then I'm going to push export. And I'm going to write over this and say there and say yes. Okay, it's done. So now we need to jump over to Substance Painter. I'm going to open up Substance Painter. I've already imported the plane. And then I'm going to come over just like we always do when we start and bake your plane. So we're going to bake it, but this time we're going to go straight ahead and grab this texture right here, or this high-res model right there. So now I've got it. I'm going to change this to 0.05. What it's doing is it's telling how far out to check for the normals. I'm telling it to go 5 times the distance it used to go. So it's enough. So then I'll come down to ID. And in ID, by default, it's set to vertex colors. So what I want to set it to is material color. And when I set its material color and I bake, you actually see your ID channel come up, which we usually turn off. So you'll see there, first I'll do my normals. Then that. And then the color ID, and you can see that color, and then this, and that. And say OK. And if we look, here's the color ID. It doesn't look, I should have picked 2 different colors. How do you pick colors in ZBrush? You really can't. But what you can do is you can push Control W again, and again, and again, and again, and it'll change colors, and that's a little bit better next time. Well, actually, I'm going to do it this time, and then I'll export it and do it over again. So I've re-exported it, changed the colors, and let's see what we get. So I'm going to do a bake again. What I could do is just bake one part of it. I could just say do the ID, and that's probably what I'll do just to make our lives a little faster. Doop, doop, doop. We'll hide everything but that. It's only going to bake the ID, and then I'll make sure it's pointing to the same mesh it is, and then I'll say bake. And there we go. Quite contrasty. And say OK. So now everything else is the same. It's just using that mask. So it's showing 2 different materials. So how do I use that? Well, let's pick a, let's see, I'm going to pick a concrete material and just throw it on there. Now I've got everything set up. There's one concrete material for the whole thing. What I would usually do is, what you need to do, I should say, is come in here and add a mask. And we've done white, we've done black, we've done bitmap, and now we're going to say mask with color. selection and click on that, and you'll see that it pops up with this color selection. And what I'm going to do is say pick color, and I'm just going to pick this green as one. And then I'm going to, actually, you know what? Let's pick the other one. Let's pick this orange as the color. Boom. And now, if I zoom in, you'll see I've got that brick mortar texture in the background with that color on it. Now I just need to pick some other colors for my stone. Let's see what I have. We could do, no, I don't want to do something with bricks on it. That'd be interesting, but that's not what I'm going for right now. That's more bricks. There we go. We'll do mortar wall on top. It doesn't really matter. Now, you'll notice that it overwrote the other one. And I could have just put it underneath and it will do the same thing, but I kind of wanted to show you that you can probably be smart to have that same mask on both of the objects. That way there's no bleeding or anything. So I'm going to say color selection mask. I'm going to pick a color, and this I'm going to pick the bricks. And now I've got that set up. And now when I decide I want to put dirt or something in here, we can do that. We can go to Smart Material and find something like dirt. Just throw it on there and go right on top, and now it's dirt through all the objects. See? And you can control that and play with it and see what you get. Now I want you to spend the time and try and get these right. So like this mortar wall or this concrete's probably the wrong color. I'm going to go over to the concrete color and see if I can change any of the color attributes. Probably not. So I may have to throw a layer over the top of it. So what you probably could do is just throw this in the folder, copy this, copy mask, and I'll say black and see if I can paste this in here. There we go. And then I can delete this one. Now I've got that set to separate pieces. Now I can come up in here, get rid of the mask altogether. Remove mask, there we go. And then I can take the color off, or I can leave it on and add a layer right above it by just saying fill layer, and then pick the color I want that to be. I'll turn off everything else like this. Probably turn off the dirt so we can see it better, maybe even this. And I'll come in here, and now that the dirt's on, now that this color's on, I can just change this to be something like a darker shade, like a brown or something. Let's go down a little bit more orangey. Like that. So it's got that on there, and then I'll change it to be a overlay, and now I get that, and now I can mess with the colors as much as I need to. You know, I can change it to whatever I like. I'll put this back up. I want it kind of maybe darker, so what I'll do is I'll just bring it down, and it makes it a lot darker, and there you go. I'm not crazy about the orange stuff that's over here, so I'm just going to change this to multiply now that I know I want it darker, and then it'll work a little bit better. Okay, now I'm going to show you a different way to do it, and this is a way without bringing it out of ZBrush at all, and just taking the normals and the height map or whatever you want straight from ZBrush.